All right, Steve, let's talk wide receivers going into decision mode because official visit season is over, at least for the month of June. And now they're going to sit down. A lot of these guys are going to sit down with their families and make some decisions. We saw two big names come off the board this week in wide receiver CJ Wiley out of Georgia and Joshua Moore out of the state of Florida. CJ Wiley, surprise, picked the Seminoles, Joshua Moore to the Gators. Let's start now, Steve, with some of these uncommitted names. And we'll start at the top of the wide receiver board, and that's number one wide receiver, Doran Moore. Him and his family tell you they are going into decision mode. What is the decision going to be when they come out of decision mode?
Well, there's a reason why I haven't put an on-3 RPM in yet for Texas. In the Call Your Shot article, Chad Simmons and I both called Texas, but we are both very well aware that these other three finalists are very much in the thick of it for Doran Moore. Now, Oregon has been a program that's been coupled with Texas for a lot of the process when he was committed to LSU as the two other programs to watch, and he had another great visit to Oregon over the weekend. There's not a coaching staff collectively doing a better job recruiting Doran Moore than Oregon, from Dan Lanning to Junior Adams, to Coach Samples, to Coach Will Stein, and all the way down to the water boy, according to Marjan Moore, his mom. They know everybody at Oregon. They always feel incredibly comfortable in Eugene, and certainly they like the trajectory of that program. You have Evan Stewart, who transferred from Texas to Oregon. So there's all kinds of things to like about Oregon in this recruitment. And obviously, his first love was LSU. His favorite player is Jamar Chase. LSU's track record of receiver development. His official visit to LSU earlier this month, he was the only prospect on campus. They got intimate one-on-one treatment during that visit. And I think it reminded Doran why he loved LSU and why he was committed there for so long in the first place. And then Ohio State, Brian Hartline, what he's done with receivers, five-star receivers. The family has mentioned the way Ohio State's mental health approach for their athletes is something that's very exciting. So all these programs are in the mix. And when you talk to sources around each program, they feel like they have some confidence in there. And outside of Texas, sources will say, hey, this is a young man that wants to get away, wants to spread his wings a little bit. So that doesn't mean he won't go to Texas. I'm just saying, this is a hard one to call right now because these schools have done a really good job of making it attractive options for Doran Moore.
All right. So as we take a look at the top 10 wide receivers in America, we see that 4 are committed. So meaning 6 still remain uncommitted. In the top 5, the first 4, you got Doran Moore, Caleb Cunningham, Khik, Lockett, and Jamie French, all uncommitted. Now, we know Caleb Cunningham coming out of that Alabama visit. Both you and Chad Simmons like where he's trending towards the Tide. You both put your picks in there. Let's move on to Khik Lockett, though. Some big news came out yesterday with him. He's going to make his final decision on August 7th. So Khik Lockett also goes into decision-making mode. Alabama, FSU, LSU, Texas A&M are the finalists. But is this really an in-state battle? What's going on here with Khik Lockett?
Well, I still have my on-3 RPM on Texas. I think it was another great visit to Austin. The school that would make me nervous about that prediction is Alabama. I think Alabama really moved up the list with their official visit, a midweek trip right before Texas. I think that was an eye-opener for him to get around Coach Shepard, get around Coach DeBoer and that coaching staff. They like the vibe. They like the past history. They like what Alabama's doing to build it up. So those are the two programs that I have the keenest eye on right now for Khik Lockett going into his August 7th decision.
All right, so as these wide receivers come off the board, we get to Jamie French. So all these guys have decision dates set. Jamie French does not. What do you think French will do after Moore and Lockett are off the board? Do you think he wants to announce before the season starts or take it into the season? He's kind of mentioned both so far.
He has his decision date set for August 30th. I think that right now you give the edge to Texas coming out of his return visit official this past weekend to Austin. But LSU and Miami are two other programs that are right there in the thick of it for Jamie French. And he's expected to make some more rounds at the end of July when recruits are allowed on the road for 1 week. And Josh, how about those new rules? That's going to be a dead period next year all the way through July. That's something that we're celebrating just as much at the Wiltfong House as they're celebrating in college recruiting offices. So the pool parties, the big cat weekends, the barbecues at the big house. All those things will have to be moved to the spring. But that window in July, Jamie French is going to get on the road one more time, see his finalists again.
Yeah.
I give the edge to Texas right now. They got to hold off LSU and Miami one more time before he announces on the 30th.
All right, moving through the top 10 at number 5, we got Dallas Wilson. He is committed to Oregon. And then at number 6, we got Vernell Brown III. Now, he is trending to UF on the RPM, but do we know when he's going to announce yet, or do we have a time frame?
Yeah, I talked to his dad yesterday. They're going into decision mode this weekend, working through those things, getting an announcement date in order and all of that. We like Florida. This is a Florida legacy, 2-time Florida legacy that believes in Coach Billy Napier and what they're trying to do over there, believes in the way that they've recruited quarterbacks and the way they've changed that culture around that program. And he's just always loved Florida. So spent some time with him at the Elite 11 finals when he was out there catching passes. I've talked to the family, and it's looking good for Florida right now. Miami, Florida State, Ohio State rounding out the list of finalists. But Florida Gators, they just land Joshua Moore. Like them for Vernell Brown. It could be a really exciting receiver class, a couple dynamic guys for Florida if they land Vernell Brown III, which I think they ultimately will.
Yeah, kind of just reading the tea leaves there. He took an official visit to FSU last weekend, but all the expert picks start rolling in for Florida as the weekend ends. It just doesn't bode well for the Seminoles up north. Let's move on to number 7 ranked wide receiver in America, Derek Meadows. He announced that he's set to decide September 1. Now, the big-bodied wideout out of Las Vegas has been trending in a couple different directions, I guess, depending on where the visits have gone. But where do you see things standing with Meadows as we're about 2 months from his decision?
Well, he took his official visits to Michigan, Alabama, LSU, Notre Dame, and Georgia. And coming out of those trips, I feel the same way I did coming in. I think Notre Dame and Alabama are the two I'm watching the closest. And he's having final discussions with these programs as he tries to make his college decision. Now, he has a in-mind date of September 1st, but I think he's going to come off the board much earlier. He's been able to see his finalists. He's, again, having final meetings with some of these schools as he dots I's and cross T's. And I think you look at Notre Dame, what they love about the Irish. First, the new hire of Mike Denbrock and his track record of getting the balls to wide receivers. And they think that they're going to see that ratcheted up at Notre Dame, which has been traditionally a place where tight ends and running backs have feasted. Mike Denbrock has a track record with receivers being big play guys in that offense. So that's exciting. And then just how globally known Notre Dame is academically and what that could do for you career-wise. Those are some special things that they see with Notre Dame. But Alabama, just hey, I'm an Alabama football player. The magnitude of that is something that's exciting. The energy that they've seen and the connection that they've built with Jamarcus Shepard. This is a coaching staff that he got to know when they were at Washington. Now they're at Alabama. It's been a seamless transition with that relationship. And just what Alabama football, the magnitude of that, that is something that's very exciting for Derek Meadows and his family. And so those are the reasons why I think those are the top 2 schools. And we'll see what happens. I think it's a pretty close race, and it's going to be small details that decide whether he ends up in South Bend or Tuscaloosa.
All right, the number 8 and 9 wide receivers both came off the board in the last 2 weeks. Quincy Porter to Ohio State, Talon Taylor to Georgia. And that brings us to the number 10 ranked wide receiver in America, Andrew Marsh, who now is trending to Michigan over Texas.
Yeah, and Oklahoma was the school that I thought it had the control for Andrew Marsh for a lot of his process. Also took an official visit to USC, but he's been to Michigan 5 or 6 times, Josh. Him and Ron Bellamy have a great relationship. He fits in at Michigan with their culture and their locker room and loves Sharon Moore. And then he's expected back for their barbecue at the Big House in July. So like the way that's setting up, August decision for Michigan, or excuse me, for Marsh. And I, as it stands right now, I think it'll go in Michigan's favor.